So Zillow responds to Compass's lawsuit, and appears to me that Zillow has the same problem as trying to understand what Compass has done as a strategy versus just denying the allegations that are wrong. Zillow, I think, comes up with a really snappy name for what Compass's strategy is, which is the hidden listing scheme. So where Compass is trying to make it private exclusives, how they hide listings from the marketplace and tell the sellers are getting extra money and kind of mislead buyers and thinking properties are new. Hidden listing scheme, I think, is a great description, very clear as to what it does. And they point out that Compass has disparaged competitors, including eXp My Brokerage, without any evidence at all. And it's left me wondering if Compass's strategy is not just a Hail Mary, hoping that one judge in one court will rewrite all of real estate, just like it did in St. Louis in that horrific case. I'm Bill Gross, and this is my weekly real estate market update. And one of the biggest topics is really this Compass lawsuit against Zillow, and really against all the other realtors. And this is the aftermath of the terrible lawsuit out of St. Louis, Missouri, which has really kind of pitted agencies and companies against each other, and every company is fighting for survival. And Compass is a company that's worth billions of dollars. It's one of the largest real estate companies in America, but doesn't make any money. It doesn't make a profit. And what they've done is raise money from Wall Street, and they buy companies and agents by promising some of the commission in advance. And it's almost a way to use their insecurity against them to build this big, large company. And now they're attempting to monopolize the market by putting the listings into their hands only and ignoring hundreds of years of cooperation amongst real estate agents, which has worked for the marketplace. Now, I think that Compass is the spawn of the Wall Street devil. I think Zillow is as well the spawn of the Wall Street devil. I think both of them are horrible companies, and both of them ill-serve our industry. Neither pays any federal taxes. I pay more taxes in federal income tax than both of them combined. And meanwhile, they're both trying to destroy me and my colleagues. It's interesting. And you wonder what kind of country you'd be left with if ever they were successful. But I do want to talk about the lawsuit's most recent activity, which was the response. Compass filed a lawsuit against Zillow. I covered that last week in detail. And today, I'm going to go through Zillow's response, which they filed last week as well. Now, one of the things they call this three-step program, they're exclusives. And I think, like I said, that Zillow did a great job of pointing out that it violates the MLS rules, meaning it's not just that Zillow arbitrarily said we're going to penalize Compass. What they're saying is, well, we are getting our data from MLSs. The MLS have rules which state that after 24 hours, if it's being publicly marketed, the property has to be available to everybody. And Compass wants to violate that. Compass openly admits they want to violate NER, National Association of Realtor rules, because the NER rules have ethics to say if you're going to market publicly, you have to put it available to everybody. And these are rules designed to protect buyers, so not fooled by how long a property's been in the market. They're there to protect sellers, so agents don't do what's good for their commission check and hurt the customers in the long run. And so Zillow points this out. I think they do a really, really good job. I was anxious to read the response. I want to shout out to BAM, which is nowbam.com. BAM is the organization. Their website is nowbam. They do a great job of summarizing this particular article, this particular issue. And let me pull it out. Here we go. Zillow responds. And now I do a good job, and this is Vanessa Bowman, I guess, is the author, summarizing it, but she also links to the actual filing, which I was going to get, but this saved me, I think, $45. It's about a 60-page download. So this is a great source for real estate news. Definitely worth checking, nowbam.com. So in there, again, I think the key things I would take out of the filing are, number one, the term they use is hidden listing scheme. Let's all use that term. Let's all use that term to compare when a customer says to me, hey, I hear Compass has this great program called three-step marketing with exclusives. What do you think? I would say, well, that's what we call a hidden listing scheme, and here's why it works against you, and we should explain it. And we should allow that competition in the marketplace to continue. One of the things I found fascinating was, I think, the difference of the value of the filings. Like when I looked at, here's the filing for Compass, and here is the response by Zillow. And I just found the Compass filing not very lawyerly, meaning when I open it up, it just starts right into it, whereas the filings have, table of contents and what they're going to do. Oh, I did that. I lost my spot. Here we go. And so I just found that the Zillow format to me was just much more professional, and to me seemed to be much more documented. And specifically, I lost my spot. I don't believe I did that. Here you go. Zillow did not, and did not conspire, and then Zillow, it talks about EXP. Zillow and EXP did not conspire to boycott. And here is Compass saying they did. Now, if you read Compass, they're basically accusing the company I work with and 88,000 agents in the country of conspiring against them. You'll notice there's no footnote. There's no documentation. There's no document. There's no smoking gun. There's no web page. EXP and Zillow are conspiring against us. Just really some quotes, which to me is not very lawyerly. Versus in Zillow's response, they actually document that the CEO of EXP did reach out, and they documented that was covered. They did a public announcement, and we have a policy at EXP now, which is all of our listings, all publicly marketed listings as EXP have to go into Zillow. And by the way, anywhere else. And by the way, anything that Zillow has to have all of our listings. They agree to take all the publicly listed or none. So we're agreeing to play by a set of rules that we both agreed to, and other companies have copied that format, and we made a public announcement, document that. Compass is basically disparaging our company with no documentation at all, with no explanation other than their arguments. No evidence, no documents. This, and one of the NAR ethics is we're not allowed to disparage other companies. It's one thing to quote our policies, another thing just to say we're cheating them without any documentation at all. Very, very poor, I think, overall as an activity. Okay, also, Zillow points out in their policy that all customers will see all listings other than the Compass ones they're not going to put in. And that's their goal, is to be is to have a repository, but there's multiple repositories of all listings. The only place that aspires to be a hidden subset of the listings is Compass. And so they point out that they're pro-consumer because buyers will see all listings other than those being privately marketed, and sellers will see all the competition and the actual facts. And Compass seeks to fool people by saying a property is marketed for, say, 9 days when it's marketed for 30 days. So I think that's a great point. Also, Zillow makes the argument, I think a good one, they should have a choice to do business with who they want to. Now, if you want to say they're a monopoly, there's a court that makes those rules. But they should not be forced to do business with a company that openly declares they will not follow rules of their own trade organization and other vendors. Meaning, Compass has said publicly they're not going to follow NAR rules. They said publicly they're not going to follow the MLS rules. So then why in the world should Zillow be forced to do business with somebody who's openly flouting other people's rules? So again, I'm not a fan of either one of these companies. I will say this. The real estate industry has been in turmoil for the last year because of some stupid lawsuit by, I think, a deceptive or misled seller, one, and they create a class action out of it. Well, that's what attorneys do. They can kind of create nonsense out of whole cloth. One court in St. Louis, Missouri, destroyed the entire industry and forced every single real estate contract written, every single residential listing agreement and public association realtor agreement has been changed because of a lawsuit that resulted in nothing. No protection for the buyer, no protection for the seller. Just to appease these attorneys who threatened everybody with the same lawsuit. And I think what Compass is doing, they're a New York-based company, they're a darling of Wall Street. And I think it's sly. They file a lawsuit in New York, where they're headquartered, where their investors are headquartered. And this is really, to me, just a replay of the Democrats' attempt to take down Donald Trump. Now, if you think that's good strategy, then Compass is your company. Because, in some regards, it's smart, maybe good business, to try to use one court to destroy an industry. And just like New York attempted to take down Donald Trump and deny the rest of the country the ability to vote for president because they were going to destroy him by taking evidence that was clearly not clear and clearly not violative and change the laws. What Compass attempted to do is go to one court and change the entire real estate industry, attacking Zillow. When you go in court in Manhattan to fight, you're going to lose. And so I just don't think that's how business should be handled. And here's my other proof. If Compass really believe they're right, rather than fighting in court, why wouldn't they make it a battle of public opinion? Meaning, if they really believed they were doing better for their sellers, why would they bother going to court? Why would they go to every real estate conference and be in every social media saying, this is the better system for sellers? Why don't they say to every buyer, our website's more valuable, talk to a Compass agent, we'll show you our special hidden listings, our hidden listings. Why don't they do that? I'll tell you why. Because they would lose. Their argument is losing in the battle place of the marketplace, and as a result, in a desperate attempt to keep some sort of competitive advantage and to leverage their size, they resort to picking a court that's probably biased in their favor in their backyard with all their investors' backyards, hoping that will take down really an entire industry. I think it's despicable. I'd love to know what you think. Let's take a look at the rest of the real estate news. We'll go on and take a look at the interest rates. And as I always say, that in any economy of buyers and sellers, there's two parts to a marketplace. And the buyers and sellers are supply and demand. And demand is based on interest rates and supply is based on inventory. So we'll take a look at interest rates first. For all the drama of tariffs and Trump and all the drama about deficit spending and everything in the world, there has been nothing more steady than interest rates this year. It is amazing. Today rates, or last week on Friday, rates closed at 6.81. Look at that last year. It's almost flat. If you look at a long term, you'll see that rates are always either going up, they're going up, they're going down, they're going up. This 1 year period has been the most stable period almost of my lifetime. Rates are stable. They're good enough to encourage buyers to buy property based on my experience on every listing I have. On the inventory side, on the supply side, kind of bad news, I think, for the market in that inventory in June slipped to 1.423 million from 1.5 million in May. This number, first of all, the slip, a downward trend, if that's a trend now, usually doesn't happen until August, September. We're already getting worse for the rest of the year. That's really bad news. And you can see even if it's gone up from May, it still would have been below every other month in history before the COVID. So we have a major problem in America. We do not have enough houses for sale because we don't have enough houses built for our population. And the answer that most governments seem to have is building high-rise rental apartments that people don't want to live in. People want the American dream. They're willing to fight for it. They're willing to buy it. And the market's just not providing it. And as a result, the prices are high. In my neighborhood, house up the street, a teardown, went for just under $2 million. It's coming back in the market for $5 million. Now, it's the highest sale in our market for a while, by a good margin, by about $1 million margin. But unfortunately, in LA, where you don't allow building, and it's so hard and expensive to build a new house, that's what we get. And with so many people and coming in the marketplace and so few houses, inventory going down, that's not a good sign for buyers, but it does mean that prices can't fall, because as long as there's low inventory, prices only go down when sellers are desperate and cut the price, and that's not happening. It can't happen with a low inventory. Now, overall in LA, overall market is getting more balanced. It had been a seller's market, and now we're at 35.5. We've been between 35 and 36, according to Altos, for the last few weeks. So it's been in that range. Certainly not strengthening for sellers. Certainly getting to be more opportunities for buyers, and getting to be what I would call a balanced market. We're just a little bit away from that, but pretty close to that. Okay, so let's take at the rest of the news. One of the real stories, I don't know if you caught it, but our government's really excited, is homelessness dropped for the second time in 2 years. Yay, Team LA, right? You would think. Isn't that exciting? And you had of course, you had the little press release with the mayor and her smiles, and then her little crony there who makes a fortune giving contracts to her husband's company. Disgusting people. But when you break the numbers down, and I actually do that, I notice a couple things. It's very hard to get numbers. And who knows who creates the numbers? The government agency that's justifying their job. But what I can tell you is, according to these numbers, in 2023, we had 75,000 and change homeless, and that's dropped to 72,000 apparently in 2025. Wow, that sounds great. Well, not so great. A couple factors I think really apply to create those numbers. One factor that applies is they claim to have put 28,000 people into permanent housing. Permanent is the word they use. Well, if you did 20,000 a year, you would think in 3 years you'd wipe out the homelessness. It turns out that somehow there's another 20,000 coming end up being homeless. And so you might say, wow, so we're chipping it down by 3,000 over a 3 period, about 1,000 a year. So in 28 years, we'll get rid of homelessness at the pace we're at. Well, maybe, maybe not. If more people come here, I suspect the numbers are being skewed. But I don't think the homelessness is less than it was. When I drive around, I see more places, more numbers. There's another factor going on that I don't want to tell you about, which is when I did a little research here, I found out that there's the report done by the LA Homeless Services Authority, or LASA. When you dig a little deeper, you find out in 2023 that over 2,500 people died who are homeless in LA County, right? Now, nationally, about 0.9% of our population die every year, less than 1%, 0.9%. And here, this number represents about 3.32%. So if 2,500 people died, we would have expected only 680 to die. That means an extra 1,800 people died in 2023 because they were homeless, right? 1,800 people died being homeless that would not have died had they been like the regular population. And you take that for 3 years, that's 5,400 people excess deaths in 3 years. So really, we should have less homeless people. If nothing else, it should have gone from 75,500 to about 70,000, just because those who died, let alone the placement success. So the fact that it's at 72,000 means we're not replacing the people coming in faster. We're just getting lucky, I guess, if that's how you want to look at it. I don't, that they're dying. And I guess our government policy is we've made more progress on letting them die in the street than we are actually in placing them into permanent housing. Now, in most places of the world, people, specifically 2,500 people dying a year in your streets would be a disaster. You extrapolate out across the country. You're talking about tens of thousands of people just dying because they have no place to live. Here, we're not concerned with that problem, really. We have a dysfunctional agency. We have billions of dollars being wasted. We have a governor and a mayor unaccountable. And we have excess people dying. We have 5,000 people died in the last 3 years, more than had they been housed. And that's really the real reason why overall we can say that the numbers of housing, if anything, of homeless has gone down. It's strictly because so many have died as a result of the unhealthful status. And out of the deaths, half were drug or alcohol overdoses. And they use the word alcohol overdose. I find that kind of weird, but drug or alcohol related. So we know who's dying. We know who these people are. There's a lot of arguments that they're just average people who lost their jobs. Not the case. The statistics don't bear that out. Okay, and I know statistics are just difficult things for government people to deal with. Okay, talking about government policy, exciting. The state announced that they were going to spend $110 million of your tax dollars and mine to buy lots in the Palisades to turn them into housing. Now, there was so much outcry. The good news is that the backlash put that bill on hold. Notice, it didn't go away. You didn't have government officials saying, oh, wow, you're right, we're stupid. There's no reason why we should be doing that. We should be taking your tax dollars and financing people coming from around the world to our city. We should be helping the people who lost their house get their house back. How about put the money into getting government agencies to approve licenses or permits? No, that's not what they're doing. But I think it's fantastic if you really want to understand politicians, you just look at the motivations. It just tells you everything about who these people are. Because when you read what Governor Newsom said before the backlash, he said that the purpose of this was funding multifamily, low-income housing development that will contribute to a more equitable and resilient Los Angeles. Now, that was his goal. And when this law was announced, this proposal was passed by the state Senate, not passed by the Assembly, so it didn't get to the governor to sign, but it's on hold. So they can as soon as people aren't paying attention, they'll rush it through. But notice his priorities. His priorities are multifamily low-income housing. It's not rebuilding the house that people lost their homes. It's not rebuilding the communities that were lost. It's building a more equitable and resilient Los Angeles. Yeah, one that doesn't burn down because the city doesn't have water in the fire hydrants. It needs to be more resilient than that. You know how LA can be more resilient? With a new mayor and a new governor. Just disgraceful. But if you just listen to their words, they're telling you where their priorities are. Their priorities were get rid of all those rich people in the Palisades. Let's make it all a government paradise, multifamily, multi-level housing with rail and all kinds of fancy government programs, and we'll all get a lot of money out of it. And the poor people lost their houses are in trouble. That's our governor. Continuing on good news. Here's one. LA sues Airbnb over gouging during the wildfires. Now, it's terrible what happened. There are people who, we were ones who offered housing to people who were displaced, friends, family. We have an extra bedroom that we use when our grandkids sleep over, and we made it available. And we had, we put it out to different organizations to help people. We had some people that we helped. But there are people who maybe, need to offset the expense of that. It costs money to clean the room. We have a housekeeper who comes once a week. We have her do extra linen. We have her clean the room, clean the bathroom. We're lucky to have the resources to do that. Some people don't. And some people need to get paid to do that. Other people, it's an inconvenience more than it would be for us. And so they want to get charged and pay for the room. And they put it on Airbnb. And so you can imagine the people look at a house and say, well, if I can get $100 a night, I'm not going to bother with it. But if I can get $120 a night, maybe I will. That's a 20% increase. And so the city of Los Angeles has determined that anything more than a 10% increase is gouging. Well, in an emergency, you want to draw all resources you can, and people can make a decision to pay more or not, right? It's not that the people who had the housing could raise their prices. There were not enough rooms or not enough houses available. A lot of people moved into hotels temporarily. A lot of people had to go out of the area temporarily. And so I think it just gets down to a question, do we want to have city council members making decisions as to what people can charge or not charge, or whether or not people are incented to rent out their room or their house? Or are we going to leave it to our fellow community members? I think by and large, most community members are generally more honest than most politicians. And if politicians are doing this, there's probably some other reason why. I think it's the hotel organizations putting the thumb on them because they're all unionized, and they hate Airbnb because they don't get their union jobs. And that's what this really is. This is really just the government making policy based on their political cronyship, not based on what best serves our Los Angeles. It seems to me that we should be able to make the right decision as property owners if we're going to rent out a house or not, or rent out our room or not, what we want to charge. And we don't need the city council members telling us what to do. But what do you think? So look, I've taken some strong positions today. I feel more free to do that, I think, now as my business has matured. But I do think it's important to be honest and speak the truth. What do you think, though? Do you disagree with me? What are your facts? Put your comment in the comment section. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Subscribe to this if you like this. I'm available at Bill Goes Probate on social media. As always, make today your best day ever.